Starting this camera. Hi, my name is Leanna Murph, and this is
Lily.
So today we're going to be doing a podcast for my Psychology of Deaf and Dying class. I just want to give you guys a quick disclaimer. We are running a couple of cameras, so don't be alarmed if you see us looking away from the camera. We will be running from two different cameras. So what we're going to do here is I have an ethics case study that I have to do a podcast on, and my daughter here is going to be reading off some questions and giving her input as she sees fit. Okay, Lily.
Oh.
Do you want to go ahead with the first one?
Summary. What happened to WOM and why is it important to the study of death and dying?
Okay, so the case that I chose was Terri Schiavo. Sorry if I'm saying that name wrong. And it is husband and parent battle for ending life support in U.S. So this case is about Terri. She was someone who, she was young. She was married. I think she was less than 30 years old. She was probably 28, 29 when she got married to Michael. And she was doing some she was dieting and she was drinking a bunch of fluids. They said she drank up to 15 cups of tea a day. And it gave her a heart problem. She was having like a slower heart rate, which led to her having a heart attack, going into cardiac arrest. Yes. No, of course not. Yeah, sure. What? $74.
Wait, let me see.
It's all
right, send me a text.
Okay.
Actually, can you get my notes over there? I forgot my notes because I was gonna say exactly.
A spider hoodie?
Right here, my book bag, please. Thank you. Yeah.
So while we wait, we're getting an ASMR.
Yeah, the mics are working. Actually, yes, please take him. But do you see a book over there? A notebook over there?
This quality is like so cute.
Yeah, my camera is busting.
But like I keep getting unfocused.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You thought you were slick, son? He's laying right now.
Thank you. We do apologize for those technical difficulties.
Mama, what happened?
What? Those are my notes.
The difference in the
handwriting. My handwriting changes. It goes through some things. Okay, so oh my God. Okay, here it is. I am so sorry. This is embarrassing. There's no editing, so.
I feel like this quality needs to be on a movie. I just belong in a movie.
Okay, so so she was suffering from hypokalemia, which is low potassium levels, which can lead to low heart rate and abnormal heart rate. And that's exactly why she passed out. And her husband, Michael, called for help. But when she was resuscitated, she had lost oxygen to the brain. And therefore, she was in a vegetative state, a persistent vegetative state. Okay, so can we read the next one?
Define death. How is death defined in this case?
Okay, so for Terri, she had a social death because she was no longer herself. She couldn't talk. She was breathing on her own, but she couldn't feed herself. She couldn't swallow. She couldn't speak to anyone. So I'm sure things were different for the people who loved her, the people who would communicate with her in the past before her accident. So yeah, she definitely had a social death. And I think her husband and parents suffered most from that. Outside of a social death, she was brain dead. She was in a persistent vegetative state. So there was nothing really going on upstairs. I saw her CAT scans and I saw how the regular brain looked, and her brain was complete fluid. Yeah, she had nothing going on upstairs. So you want to go to you want to go to number 3?
Oh, my bad. I thought you were still talking.
No, that's okay.
Legal considerations?
Yeah.
What legal battles occurred and what was the outcome?
Okay. So there was a lot going on legally. The courts had appointed her husband Michael to be her. Well, when you're married, your spouse is usually your next of kin, but the courts account my words are mixing up, sorry, but the courts put Michael ahead of the parents and made him like her legal guardian. And this is where most of the problems began, because the husband put in a request to take her off of the feeding tube, the feeding and fluids, and the parents were totally against it. So there was 7 years of legal battles within the court system, the judicial system, and they fought tooth and nail back and forth. She was actually removed from the feeding tube a couple of times and then put back on the feeding tube. So legally, this was a huge case in the United States. Okay, so you know how I fast sometimes? Just because you're not eating don't mean you'll die that day. So they took her off of the feeding tube, and then like a couple days later, the courts would put out a report. They would put out, I don't know, I don't like to call it a report, but they would make them put the tube back in. So that's why she was alive, because it wasn't her, they weren't breathing for her. She was still breathing, but as far as eating, you can go a little while without eating. So when they removed the tubes, she was still alive, and there was times where the tubes was placed back in. The first time, let me see. So she went into cardiac arrest on February 25th, 1990. And the first time they removed the tubes were, let me see. Hold on, sorry. Okay, so the first time they removed the tubes was April 24th of 2001. And then April 26th, they had the tubes put back in. And this happened multiple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ethical consideration. What ethical principles were involved in this case? Describe too.
Ooh, okay. So when it comes to the ethical situation, I feel like the court is law, but as people of the court, I feel like they were crossing boundaries. Well, I can't just say people of the courts, because there were some people that was against removing the feeding tube, and then there was people that was for supporting the husband who was trying to remove the tube. I just feel like a lot of lines and boundaries were crossed, and the husband's wishes should have been respected. And I feel like, as for the parents, I feel like it was more the mother, but to no end would she have stopped fighting. And I know that it could have been for her religious reasons and her beliefs, but I just don't feel like it was respectful to the daughter and what her wishes may have been. And I feel like it kind of went beyond what her child may have needed or may have wanted. And I think everything else went out the window, and the parent just wanted to keep her for herself and keep her alive, even if there was no brain activity, even if she was in a vegetative state.
Cultural, religions, or
Yep.
societal considerations. What cultural or religion beliefs were involved in this case?
Oh, we were just talking about that. So the mom, okay, so for religion, the mom she was telling to the court that her daughter, I believe they were Catholic, and she said as a devout Catholic, her daughter would never reject something that was to her state of being, that was good for her state of being, which would be like eating and drinking and things like that. And so that was the main reason why she didn't want to have the feeding tube removed, for religious purposes. And I do feel like, regardless of being brought up in a religion, she didn't really know exactly what her daughter felt or would have wanted in that case, because there is the fact that she was possibly refraining from eating herself, which is kind of what got her in this predicament. Like, she did up her fluid intake, and having too many fluids is what hurt her ultimately. But she was dieting, and there was some say about her being bulimic, and I'm gonna have to scratch that for YouTube purposes. But there was some say about her having an eating disorder, and it was never fully proven. But from the looks of it, she was okay denying herself food and substances. So yeah, and then did you go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to see what else they were asking on that last one. So that was the religious one. And I think culture goes to say in that. I'm sure they had the church backing them up. The parents, I believe the husband was some type of pastor, preacher. He was definitely of the church and of high standing in the church. So their beliefs were very strong. And I think that played a major part. And culturally, religion plays a part as well. And people came from all over the place when this went viral, we could say, back in the 90s, all over the news and over the US. And it brought out so many different people with many different opinions. But culturally, I feel like they had the support of their people, who was also against her removing the tubes. And the only issue I see here is, if the daughter did not want to live like this, she should have been allowed to not live like that, regardless of, I guess what we could say is peer pressure, especially when she had her next of kin making those decisions, and those decisions being completely ignored. What would you do if it were me and I passed out and I could no longer talk, and I couldn't do anything for myself anymore? I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't play games with you. I couldn't speak with you. I couldn't watch a movie with you. Anything. Couldn't keep myself clean. Anything. Like, what would you do? Would you want to keep me alive? If I didn't have a will saying this is what I want, what would you want to do?
Go to club. Or whatever it's called. Because, like, you're not having any bodily functions or, like, human functions. So you can't feed yourself. You can't do nothing for yourself. And you're not even breathing for yourself. So what are you alive for?
Oh, okay.
Like, not like that. But
let's say I'm breathing. Let's say I'm breathing. But that's the only thing I'm doing for myself. Would you remove the food?
Pulling the plug.
That's good to know. That's really good to know. But no, I think I agree. Especially because they did give her. Go ahead.
Like, you're not even yourself. You're just like it's just a body that's breathing
Right.
for itself.
Yeah, and you know what? As much as I knew that, like hearing it from you, it's kind of it's giving me a different perspective. Even though I agree, I would probably try to remove the thing too, but it just gives a different perspective. Like you won't hear me cracking jokes or talking crap. I would or yelling anything. I would just be a shell of a person of who I was before, and so you would be mourning me.
I mean,
almost like I'm dead, right?
Right.
Well, what were you gonna say?
I mean, it's just like I get why they don't want to pull the plug, but like or take it whatever. Like it's just a body. It's not doing anything for itself, and yeah, it just don't make sense to keep it on unless it's for religion. But I also don't understand why they went against the husband when she put his name in the will or whatever it's called.
Right. So she didn't put his name in the will. She was so young, I guess she figured she didn't need one. But so the judges put him in charge of her. But as her husband, here in the US, he's kind of next of kin anyways, even over the parents, right? So I understand that, and I don't know why I feel like this is the mom's doing more than the dad. But I understand where she's coming from, where the parent is coming from, but ooh, I don't know. I can totally get it because it's like she's losing a child versus a man who's losing a wife who, in a lot of ways, can get another wife. And I hope that don't sound as bad as it feels to me right now saying it, but that's the reality. Yeah, he can never get her back, but no one can ever get her back. But as a man, he can get another wife. And as a wife, she can do no wifely duties to him, right? And then, as the man, he can get another wife, but these parents, they're probably in an age where there's no more new children coming, and you know what, I had plans on researching to see if she was the only child. Not to say that they would care less if they had other children, but then they could switch their focus towards their other children, and I just really feel like she must have been like the only child because the parents could not let go, and I really feel like it's the mother, but I'm going to say the parents for the sake of when I was doing the research and reading on it, it kind of talked about them as a unit. So you got anything else to add before we go forward?
What psychological challenges did the family or medical team face? For example, death, anxiety, attitudes about death, grief, denial, and coping.
Oh, okay. So one thing I forgot to mention was, even though the courts was involved in this, and she was clearly being cared for by a lot of nurses and different things like that, um, I see them as a system as a whole, but when we break it down, these are normal human beings who also have their beliefs and their systems of belief, their way of thinking, and I'm sure they played a part in the way she was cared for and also the support of the parents. So I feel like the mom was in denial that her child was dead. And I get that in a sense, like if something happened to my child and they were brain dead and then the doctors came in and was like, hey, but these organs are kind of okay. Could we save 5 lives with these organs? I would feel like I need definite proof that my child is dead. But that's kind of hard when the body is warm and you see this person breathing and they're clearly alive. I feel like that would be extremely hard for me to accept. And so in that sense, I am like, I can feel the grief of the parent and her not wanting to let go. But also imagine how much money it took for her to be in those courts. Court is not free. Court is not free. For her to fight this for 7 years. And even at the very last minute when they denied all of her appeals. Even at the last minute before her daughter was taken off the tube for the last time, she was still fighting. So I do feel like she was in denial. If you were given an additional 7 years and your child is the same as she was 6 3/4 years ago, I think that's proof enough. But beliefs are very strong. Beliefs are very strong. Like you said, why would they go against him except if it was for religion, right? But it was definitely religion was playing a major part in that, right? Because she was saying her daughter wouldn't want to not eat because of her religious beliefs, right? But can I see that one really fast? So yeah, I'll take it. That's the last one. Oh, let me see this one really quick. So yeah, the mom was in denial for sure. The husband, I think he did very well. I didn't hear too much about him. Of course, he was fighting back, and I think the courts were on his side in a sense, but it had to still be a very strong, heavy battle on him because he remained married to her just because he wanted to see her wishes through. But he did move on with his life in a sense, but still 7 years of his life was still dedicated to making sure that she was sent home the way she needed to be sent home instead of suffering. Her body was in pretty decent shape, apparently. Um, and had they not removed the tube, she could have been prolonged like that for years and years to come, right? So I'm sure there was like death anxiety on the parents' part, as far as letting go is concerned. The Terri had nothing going on upstairs, as far as we know. So we can't say exactly how she felt about dying, but in a sense, she was dead. She was no longer who she was. Everything that she was gone. Okay, so I do feel like the husband was coping by moving on. He moved on. He was with someone else. He had children or a child with this person, their first child with this person. And I think in a way that helped him instead of him not moving on and just continuing to hold on to someone who could be no assistance to him in any way, shape, or form outside of existing. And then the medical team, there was a time where there was a nurse who stepped up and she testified. I think she testified that she had a moment with Terri and she fed Terri and Terri actually swallowed because they had previously done swallow tests on Terri and Terri had failed them. So years down the line, there was a nurse who came forward and said that she was able to successfully feed Terri, and the mom fed directly into that, and she fought really hard to be able to feed Terri and give her therapy. But at this point, I think the courts were tired and exhausted with the whole situation, and they were denying her motion to feed her. Go ahead. I'm ready. Sorry.
Reflection plus conclusion. How do you feel about the outcome of this case? What?
I know my handwriting is a little crappy.
What changes to medical, legal, religions, or cultural practices would you recommend?
Oh, okay. What changes would I recommend, and how do I feel about the outcome of the case? Okay, so I'm pleased with the outcome of the case because eventually they removed the tube, and this almost turned into a big battle between the state police and the government police because they were all like standing outside of her hospital and things like that, and they were there to make sure no one would try to remove her, and then there was also people who were coming to remove her. So I'm just satisfied with the fact that they finally brought it to an end. But also, I'm disappointed that it took 7 years. 7 years of back and forth, 7 years of, court and all of this. I feel like this is something that could have been handled had they just respected the husband's wishes. The parents could have come to terms with the loss of their daughter a lot faster. And so changes that I would recommend would be that in the US, because that's where I'm from, in the US, if a person is married and they have that married person spouse is their next of kin, and therefore they're entitled to make those decisions. You're no longer with your parents, you have left home and you've made this decision. In the event that there is a separation, a legal separation, or in any case a legal will stating otherwise that they do not want this person to speak for them, or in the event that the spouse is the one who actually put them in the position that they're in, I feel like the spouse should be able to make that decision. The spouse is the one that was chosen for them, that they chose. Typically here in the US, we don't have arranged marriages. So usually the person you marry is someone you chose, and someone you're putting your life in their hands, and someone you're choosing to trust, with those decisions. And I just feel like that if the courts have that, and everybody knows that that's the case, nothing is black and white, but unless otherwise written in some type of legal document, I feel like the spouse should be able to make that choice. Cultural, I feel like that will just be what it is. The culture shapes itself over time, and things will naturally change over time. And there's this saying, get with the times, where no matter what, there'll always be something that we can agree on and some things that we can't agree on. But when we're talking legal matters, there has to be something that that is good for all of us, right? We all have choices here, so I feel like our choices should not be taken away. And before we marry off, if we know that this is the law and you're not okay with your future husband or your new husband taking those responsibilities, then it should be in a living will. It should be written that your parents are going to be the ones who speak for you when you can no longer speak for yourself. So yeah, that was a crazy case. Do you have anything else that you want to add? I had so many notes and I did not speak on half of the things I wrote about, but this was this case was amazing. I'm really intrigued by this case and I want to do more research on it. And I've watched videos. So my sources are Wikipedia, and I've watched some YouTube videos of her. So if you guys are interested, it would be really cool if you go and research her. And her name is Terri. Her last name, so her first name is Terri. She's born December 3rd, 1960, 63rd, 63rd. And she passed away on March 31st, 2005. Wow, so her anniversary was yesterday, her death anniversary. So my batteries are dying. Okay, so you can look her up. Her first name is Terri, and her last name is Schiavo. A wonderful case. It's a series of court and legislative actions in the United States from 1998 to 2005. And I just want to say thank you guys, and thank you Terri for being an example to us, for us. Yeah, you can do whatever you need. Sure. All right. Peace.